It's rare to see a duo as well suited as Jonathan and Charlotte, and when they appeared on the Britain's Got Talent stage, both the judges and the audience were astounded by how well the two fit together and the show. What really made Jonathan and Charlotte's collaboration work so well was their friendship behind the scenes and their deep devotion to one another, especially considering that at first glance it didn't seem like the two would make a good couple, a fantastic duo of singers. When combined, the two are like fire and water, and this truly shone through the Britain's Got Talent audition. However, what have the two been up to since their time on the show? Join us as we hear the most frequent criticism of the two. Jonathan's power and dramatic tenor are better suited to more complex singing genres like opera, while Charlotte's warm and honeyed singing voice is the stuff Weston's show-stopping dreams are made of. Examine the true story of Jonathan and Charlotte's relationship on Britain's Got. A stroke of luck brings together talent. Both Charlotte Janelli and Jonathan Antoine were born in Chigwell, Essex, England. Jonathan's older sister was born to a married couple. Charlotte has previously talked about how she felt compelled to mature early, due to her circumstances, and detested having to choose between her parents. So she would stay with both after her parents divorced, a year before she met Jonathan. Of them over alternate days. All the while cultivating a love of music, after her mother had enrolled her in stage school studies when she was younger. Meanwhile, Jonathan had been collecting as many musical notes as he could. When he started middle school at West Hatch High School, he met mentors like Jeanette Brown and Jenny Ewington. The two studied music together under the same teacher, but they didn't think about collaborating until they were paired up in a music class by. The interesting thing about this pairing was that it wasn't even for a school function. Rather, it was for their music teacher Jeanette Brown's wedding day. Miss S. Brown stated that she picked the song for both her wedding and their GCEs, because she thought it best showcased their talents, and it was shocking for her to see the two appear on her television. Years later, the two continued to perform as a duo for years, before appearing on the America's Got Talent stage. When Charlotte and Jonathan first appeared on the stage of Britain's Got Talent in the 6th season, they received less than ideal feedback. In fact, many people commented that the judges' initial distaste for the P was oddly similar to their response to contestant Susan Boyle. At the time, Charlotte was training full-time in musical theatre at the Arts Educational Schools in London, while Jonathan was training classically at the Royal Academy of Music part-time as a junior. The judges were very impressed with the duo, but one judge in particular had something more controversial to say. Judge Simon Cowell advised Jonathan to dump Charlotte because he thought he was vocally superior. The couple stayed together, but changed their name from Charlotte and Jonathan to Jonathan and Susan Boyle. This was a repeat of history, as Susan Boyle went on to become a globally recognized icon. Throughout the show, Charlotte Simon himself claims that his initial assessment of Charlotte, holding Jonathan back, was incorrect, and that she actually complimented him really well in an interview. Later, Charlotte called Simon a letdown because she expected him to be scarier, but he was, according to Simon, really cool and lovely. The duo remained resilient and ultimately proved Simon wrong at the semi-final 2, where they performed Caruso as a duet. In 2012, Charlotte and Jonathan won the final, but they came in second to Dancing Dog act Ashley and Pudsey. Shortly after their time on Britain's Got Talent, the duo were prepared to move on to a better and more promising scene, because it was evident that they had what it took to succeed, as is the case with most acts that exhibit the trait. Shortly after the conclusion of the program, Jonathan and Charlotte received an offer of $1 million recording contract with Simon Cowell, who jumped in with a crazy record deal for the two label, and they agreed to do some musical theater soon. Their first album together was released on September 24, 2012, in the UK, and October 30, 2012 in the US. It included new songs and covers, such as the song they sang during their first audition. And at the end, they collaborated with producer Graham Stack, who produced the first 3 albums of X Factor opera stars, G4. The public showered the pair with love, as the album peaked at number 5 on the charts. A documentary that followed the young teens' popularity, because the show was broadcast on ITV, and the documentary delves deeply into their journey to fame, personalities, and backgrounds. The UK record charted barely 2 days after it was released. When the documentary begins, the two were still in their teens, and were offered the chance to study music in Italy and France, while conversing with some of the most significant individuals in their lives. However, the two weren't finished recording songs together, and put out a follow-up album titled Perhaps Love. The album, which Charlotte described as being more or less the same as their previous album, had more unpredictable pieces, and peaked at number 5 on the UK charts. It was also the album that began to show them diverging as artists, as each of them had their own solo songs. A year later, the skeptics' fears that they would split up were realized. Given how we typically see them, you might expect a dramatic split. Such things happen in the music business. But Jonathan and Charlotte, who are always commended for being calm people, could not have been more amicable in their breakup. After Sony Classical approached them for $1 million solo record deals for each of them, the two chose to issue a joint statement, acknowledging the impending split. Fans were devastated to learn that the two were divorcing, but it was a thrilling chance to see what their lives would be like apart. Charlotte was the first to let her go. When doing press for the studio album Solitaire, which was released in June 2014, she talked about how her next step was to start doing West End shows and musicals. She eventually graduated from ArtSet, one of London's best drama schools, in 2018 and made her West End debut that same year as part of the original UK. The singer from Heathers the Musical went on to be a founding member of the RSC play, The Boy in the Dress, which she was scheduled to perform at the Royal Bath Theatre, where from August 17 to September 10, she portrayed Florida in their production of Inner Woods. Throughout it all, Charlotte has been a strong supporter of body positivity and representation in the entertainment industry, and she recently called for HR assistance for theater performers. She updates her fans on social media. The more traditionally successful half of the pair, perhaps following his breakup with Jonathan Antoine, has been able to make progress in both his personal and professional lives. A few months after Charlotte's release of Solitaire, Jonathan released his album Tenor, which included a number of classic songs and eras. The album was incredibly well received and effectively launched his solo career into stardom. Shortly after, in 2016, he released his second album, which was regarded as receiving equally raving reviews, and a few years later, he performed his first solo concert in the United States. However, Charlotte and he hardly ever speak anymore, because he stated in an interview that he would be very open to a reunion with his old friend. As for his personal endeavors, one of the biggest ways Jonathan committed to change was physically after a long and arduous time. He has performed at numerous concerts in the Fred Cavalli Theater, at the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza in California, including the 3-part concert called Beyond the Curtain in Canada, where he sang Disney songs. He has also started a recording project with Artist Share for an album he was working on alongside Diane Warren, called by request the Diane Warren Songbook, Volume 1, a journey of weight loss that garnered media attention. Jonathan says he made the decision to lose more than 50 pounds for his health, rather than to meet society's ideals of beauty. Although it appears that Charlotte and Jonathan are both succeeding in their respective musical fields, we are left feeling a little homesick for the friendship they lost along the road. However, who knows? Perhaps they will eventually get back together for good.